into another episode of To the Show Baseball Podcast. Today's episode, we had Dan DeLucia of the Worcester Red Sox on, and he kind of broke down some things going on in the Red Sox system in regards to pitching development and, just some of his experiences in the Red Sox organization last year. As always, I'm your host, Andrew Parker, and before I get to a little bit of, I guess, what we talked about, please give us a like, subscribe, whether you're watching this on YouTube right now or listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever it is. Please leave a good review for us. It helps a lot. But yeah, I think Dan DeLucia is probably one of the better hires the Red Sox have had in the minor league system over the last couple of years. I feel like he does a very good job of communicating well with players and obviously getting them to where they need to go. And we kind of talk about some guys in the episode like Quinn Priester and Richard Fitz, Hunter Dobbins, and some of the guys he helped last year like Cam Boozer and Chase Sugar and Zach Penrod and a few others that ended up making their MLB debut. So I feel like there was pretty good information from him, and he's obviously a wealth of knowledge. Obviously being in the Red Sox system now for the past couple of years and being at Ohio State before that. But without further ado, please enjoy the interview with Worcester Red Sox pitching coach Dan DeLucia. All right, guys, we are joined by Worcester Red Sox pitching coach Dan DeLucia. Dan, I did kind of want to start this off, and for people that aren't familiar maybe as much with minor league baseball and what some of the staff does around spring, whenever you guys all report down there, and obviously I know like Chad Tracy and yourself and probably Clark and Noah Junis and all of them have been down there for a while. But what does the AAA pitching coach do during spring training?
Yeah, good question. The way that at least this organization works is honestly, we're pretty heavily involved in all of the 40-man pitchers or non-roster invitees. That includes things that we would do normally in the season. So whether it's, helping guys develop their pitches and their arsenal, or help them think through drills and different ways to attack their throwing program. I think Andrew Bailey, the big league pitching coach, and our director of pitching, Justin Willard, have done a good job of empowering us, all the coaches across the board who are big league camp, and giving us the freedom to coach just like we would guys in Worcester. And obviously we will eventually have guys anyways. So, but it's cool because it's a great learning experience. But again, I think, we feel that we are equipped to be able to do that in camp. So really it operates like a normal spring training, but just another set of hands to assist the big league staff.
And this is one of your, I guess, like first full off seasons in the Red Sox org. And well, I guess as a pitching coach, I know you spent some time down in Fort Myers as a rehab coach for a little bit, but I know you're more relatively new to pro ball per se as somebody like, I guess, I don't know. There's a lot of other names in the system, but for you now going into, I guess, another year in Worcester, like what kind of things like have you learned as of like, last year is your first year as a pitching coach there in Worcester. So like, what did you kind of learn about pro ball and I guess affiliate ball after last season?
Yeah, I'd say a couple things. One, just you see things in a totally different light than being a player in pro ball, right? So that's one thing. You don't see what goes behind the scenes. You don't see all the work being done, the decisions being made. So that's one thing. And then from my personal experience, I came from college before I was with the Red Sox, and where I currently stand, where most of, professional baseball is it's player development driven. Whereas college baseball, it's, you got to win and you got to win now. Right. So there's an element there. There's a big element that I think differs when you're talking professional baseball. And at least at the minor league level, right? And then with college baseball. So I'd say winning is one of the biggest elements. That's a change. But man, the resources, the people is unbelievable in professional baseball now. And the growth and what I've come to know over the past year I mean, it's I don't even know, multiple times what I knew coming in, right? So, and I think that's part of, like what I said, the people that we have and bringing their experiences from different places. But then just also the resources we have and the ability to learn at a rapid pace, and also have the sample size to do it. When you're in college, you have your own, I guess, little pitching staff, right? Where here you've got the breadth of, a huge department with 100+ pitchers or so to look at and reference and be able to get into the nitty gritty about. So.
We've spent a lot of time around Worcester the last couple seasons now, and obviously we've spent a lot of time talking to Chad Tracy, whether it's pregame or he's even come on talk to us this offseason on the show. But one of the things that kind of stuck out to me, and you mentioned this earlier, with your relationship with Andrew Bailey and Justin Willard, and obviously a lot of the other pitching staff in the organization, but. It's just with Chad, just how much he does talk to a guy like Chad Epperson in AA and Alex Cora as well. And because you got guys fluctuating up and down between AA to AAA to the majors. So for you, what does some of those conversations kind of look like with you? And maybe if you got a guy, for example, like Zach Penrod or Chase Sugart last year that come up to the major league team, what do those conversations look like with Andrew Bailey and co, I guess, just about like the player that's going up there?
Yeah, what's cool is that Bales and I are in touch on a regular basis, probably every other day throughout the season. And he's able to take in and absorb a lot of information and wants to know, all right, what have we been doing with the guys? Where is his mental space, his head space right now? What's been working for him? What are the things we should continue on keeping him confident up here? So it's one, I think we're a lot alike in how we coach. So typically we'll catch up and just, see how things are going, just person to person, right? I think that's one of the cooler things about Bales as well. It's not just always business, right? He cares about people in general, as do I. So I think that's first and foremost where we usually start our conversations, but then also caring for the players, right? They really want to know, or he really wants to find out, as do I, is how do we get the best out of our guys, right? Whether that be, again, where they are from a headspace, or do we need to still take something to another level, even though it is at the big leagues and we need to win here, right? So it just totally depends. There could be a guy, let's reference like Cam Boozer last year, right? Talked with him as he came up last year, when he got called up, and told him, like, Bales, give him some attack plans with certain hitters and just let him go. He's a big leaguer, good arm. Just kind of let him go. He's super confident right now. And that's what he did. Obviously he helped the ball club there for a little bit throughout the season. But then there's some other guys like, hey, make sure you keep him in the rails. Make sure you do this or that, or really lean on a certain pitch in bullpens. So it just depends on the player. So really it's trying to get where they're at and how to continue keeping them confident when they do get called up for the first time or get called back up or whatever it may be, is keeping that confidence level up.
I'm going to kind of shoot in, Chris, unless you got anything. I do kind of want to ask about specific guys. So if you got anything, Chris.
No, I'm ready for this, guys. Because I essentially was going to ask what you just asked, was really just like, how collaborative is the pitching program from top to bottom? You talk about like the relationship with Andrew. But even outside of that, do you have like regular communication? I assume obviously if there's a player coming up from AA, you're going to have that conversation. But do you have conversations with the lower level guys? Is that something that is a regular thing for you? Like, or is that strictly Willard and his group, and maybe they filter it up to you guys as necessary?
No, great question. Me personally, I'm very collaborative in what I want to do. I think some of the best coaches in professional baseball are at the lower levels. I think they are taking guys who are green, right, that are fresh and that need a lot of development at those levels. When you get up to AAA, I want to say it, I guess, like putting the finishing touches on, right? And not saying that we're still not aggressive with development, but I want to know what those guys are doing to get the guys even at the lower levels better. And we've got some really good baseball minds, some young baseball minds down there and within our department that I do want to lean on, because it's the same thing I did when I coached in college. Like, I would lean on Division III coaches. What are you guys doing? Because typically those were the guys who are doing more with less, right? So you have to think differently. You have to know how to engage players differently and get the most out of them. So I really, really enjoy talking to all of the coaches up and down levels. Again, like Sean Isaac was a guy who's in AA. So we would talk in the same realm that Bales and I would talk when guys would come up and down from the big leagues to AAA. But yeah, great question. I think a lot of times those levels just, they're not as exciting. They've got a long way to make it up where we are, and even in a bigger jump to the big leagues. So you forget about them. But man, the minds and the growth opportunities that I personally get by collaborating with those guys is awesome. So great question.
Yeah, so I'm kind of going to switch gears here a little bit. Obviously, I wanted to ask you about a few specific guys that you had a chance to see last year in 2024. And a lot of these guys are getting a lot of eyeballs, as you said earlier. A lot of them have either NRIs or they're 40-man guys. So they're obviously getting up in big league camp and into games so far this offseason. There's been a guy whose name has been kind of a favorite, I think, a little bit on Red Sox social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is these days that everybody's kind of bickering each other on. But you got a guy in Quinn Priester, and that's a guy that, obviously you got to work with a little bit towards the end of the year last year after he came over in the trade. And, for yourself, what kind of things are you noticing about Quinn as we're entering 2025?
Yeah, Quinn's awesome. We actually just sat down for a meeting, kind of a review meeting from yesterday's outing over in Lakeland. But man, he's a guy that wants it. He wants to be part of a winning culture. He wants to be part of a winning team. And he himself wants to be the best version of himself. I'd say he's along the line sometimes as like a perfectionist, but not in a good way. And he's passionate, man. When he feels something, when he has something in his head, he just wants to get it out and talk through it. I've really enjoyed, and I know the rest of the staff has too, really enjoyed getting to know him over the last, what would it be, like 9 months since we got him in the trade. He's a guy you root for because he does everything you want in a player, right? He works hard. He's solid in between the ears. For example, he, in one of the first meetings or first outings that he had with us, like, he ran the advance meeting on the other team. He had dug into everything, and typically the catchers will kind of collaborate and we'll kind of keep things in the guardrails there. He ran the whole thing. He knew what he wanted to do to every single hitter. He knows what his strengths are. He knows what he's trying to do. So pretty impressive out of him. And again, that's why you root for someone like that, right? Very coachable, wants feedback. So again, he's a guy that it's like you have some of your guys that you really root for that you hope can really take a big jump this year. So that's kind of the experience in the short term. But yeah, we'll see how things unfold. But yeah, definitely a guy we all root for.
And so Chad Tracy had, told us a couple months ago whenever he came on here, and he was kind of talking about Quinn Priester a little bit. And, he had mentioned that when he first came over in the trade that, his velocity was kind of down, and towards the end of the year, he was up at 96, 97, things like that. He said that, you and Justin Willard and company were kind of working with him a little bit, working on some things. And how does that happen? Like, how does a staff, once they get a hold of it, like, say, because you guys didn't have him on, in the organization until July, August of last year. So how do you guys work so quickly? And just like, is it you guys just pointing out things and like, we noticed this, maybe if you do this differently, like, how does that happen?
Yeah, great question. And I want to make sure I give credit to Noah Junis, to our bullpen coach, because he's obviously kind of my counterpart, and we tackle a lot of these things collaboratively. But Yeah, I'm sure a lot of the conversation and information was passed along in the trade process, right? I'm sure we identified a guy that we think we can optimize and make better in our system and how we develop guys. So once that was done, right, and we actually get him and we were able to sit down, we want to listen first. We want to understand where you're coming from, what is your experience been? And then it's like, well, here's what we see. Can we meet in the middle? Can we collaborate on this? Right. Because no one wants to have a coach or an organization ram things down your throat and basically say, hey, this is what we see. This is what you're going to do. Black and white. So we do want to build that relationship, just like any coach should do, build the trust, build the relationship, almost take a seat at their side of the table. Right. And know that you have their best interest at heart. And then show them our philosophy, show them things that we think we've identified in this process to be able to optimize a guy like Quinn, who's already been in the big leagues. We're just trying to get him back and stay there. So I think that was the part. But then, getting kind of deeper, it goes into a lot of things. It goes into their arsenals. We have our own internal pitch grades for guys, biomechanics, right? So there's a bunch of things that goes into that from an actual physiological standpoint, but that's kind of the process, the broad process as a whole. Once we identify a guy and get a guy, for example, in a trade like that.
I actually want to ask you a question because we had spoken last year. It was in passing in the hallway, and it was right around. It was. I reference this a lot because it was Quinn was walking around with 2 protein shakes, and I had asked you about what was like the focus in regards to adding weight, and you had mentioned the biomechanical changes, but I wasn't gonna make you say like, hey, what is he doing specifically? But I guess in the terms of just like broad brush for a Red Sox fan, what does that mean from that perspective? What are like just some of the things you guys are looking at? So like if they do hear a quote and it says, oh, we did a biomechanical, what does that actually look like for a fan?
Yeah, I mean, and again, every guy's individual, right? Every person is an individual. Every biomechanical characteristic is different for each guy, and it's our job to figure out what that is, to identify it. And then it's not as easy. Sometimes it's easy. It's just giving them a quick cue, but sometimes it's a longer term thing where they really have to make an adjustment to do that. And you said like protein shakes, right? Like if you did a side-by-side of Quinn from last year to this year, he's put on a significant amount of weight and muscle mass, right? So that is also something that we identified that, man, you're still young and you still haven't really, really filled out. I mean, now he looks like a linebacker, right? So part of the biomechanics process is, can more mass equal gas, right? You've heard that before. So that is part of it. But then there was a couple changes that we saw through one of our systems, Kinetrax, who we have in all of our ballparks with the Red Sox. There isn't like a one size fits all approach, but essentially we found common threads in his highest velocity pitches and what he was doing mechanically, right? So now it's all right. We sit down, we show him these things, we pair up video, we show him side by sides, and it's like, oh shoot, there are differences that I can tangibly see. Okay, great. Now, how do we put a plan in place to get you to train this on the daily basis and then go perform, still have to get outs, right? Perform and see if this works, right? And this is the luxury of the minor league level, is the games are kind of the test and retest. All the work that goes into this stuff throughout the week should hopefully make changes, but the game is the retest to see, are we able to make objective changes, and can we then show the player, hey, you're trending in a good direction, let's keep on with it. So I think, you guys are following Red Sox organization. We made pretty monumental strides just as a pitching department as a whole last year, up and down. So these are, again, it's not a one size fit all of exactly how you break down each individual guy, but there is there are resources and systems that we have in place that allow the really good coaches that we have to be able to take these things, break them down, communicate to the players, and then see if we can make progress along the way.
Yeah, because one thing that I took away specifically last year, really with obviously it's the first full year, with Breslow's focus when it comes to pitching, the whole organizational change. But Chad consistently said, the word intentional almost every day, almost in every, session we'd be in the office with him. And, it is kind of, you can see it, even just this, quick second ago, I saw there was an alert, Richard Fitz hit 99 on the gun in that game against the Phillies.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about 99 for Richard Fitz last year. That wasn't something you were seeing, and now you're seeing, you get those things. So, and it's interesting to see how each person has kind of evolved and developed. And as you guys are now talking about it and you kind of just connect to those, it's easier for us because we're there. We see it every other week.
Sure.
But it's been nice to see with Quinn though, because you can tell there's been a massive change in a short period of time.
Yeah. I mean, and Fitz the same way, if he's already hitting 99, like that's fantastic.
Bryce Harper, 99 Harper.
Got it. That makes sense. I'd want to throw harder against that guy too. But like you said, it's, I guess for the people who aren't in it on a daily basis, right, there is somewhat of a system. But again, I think it's a collaborative approach. We all talk about these things together, and just with the amount of information and the biomechanics and the analytics and the data, certain things can, I may not see something, but Junis may see something. And then we talk about it and all right, can we deliver this to the player? And we're constantly just seeing how can we optimize these players? How can we make them the best version of themselves? So really it's like, it never stops. There's so many things that we can access. But we're just as hungry as the players are to help them get better. I mean, that's what our job is, but that's what we really enjoy seeing.
I was glad you brought up Richard Fitz because he was probably the next guy I was going to talk about. But I do also want to group in a guy as well, and Hunter Dobbins, a guy that you got to work with a little bit towards the end of the year last year. And, obviously Fitz saw some time in the majors last year and had some success when he was up there. I know that, people always look at, hey, like he can't really miss bats. His strikeout numbers aren't too high. And so I have a two-parter here for you. So, well, first, I kind of want to know, like, what kind of things are you working on this spring with the guys like Richard Fitz and Hunter Dobbins? And secondly, it's, with the guy like Fitz, what are some ways that you guys are working with him on how to like maybe miss a couple more bats when he gets up there in the bigs? And I guess this is like a polar opposite way, but for Hunter Dobbins, he's a guy that's been lighting up the radar gun as well this offseason. Like, how do you harness that to get him to the big leagues?
Yeah. So I'll start with Fitz. One, you could see, like, velocity is a big driver for him, right? So that's going to exponentially increase the value of all of his other pitches, right? So if he's able to hold 99 throughout the year, he's going to be in a much better spot. He's going to be able to induce more, swing and miss. Now, as a starter, I know he's only going a couple innings today. Does he tick back down? Probably, but like velocity is the biggest driver for him. Dobbins, really anybody in our organization, it just elevates the level of all of your pitches, right? So that's the first thing. So with Fitz, we're also, we implemented a curveball in the offseason, then we're just trying to optimize a changeup that really we retooled a lot throughout the year last year in Worcester. So really continuing to make that as consistent as possible, but also give him a curveball too, that something, swing and miss later in counts that also, tunnels up, plays off his fastball that he's able to ride to the top of the zone. So really play the north-south game against hitters. But the first thing is going to be increase the velocity. So, and in the same breath, I mean, it's the same thing for Dobbins, right? It was funny. We were in the dugout in the game he started the other day in Jet Blue, and I was standing next to Giolito, and he had just thrown a 97, 98 mile an hour fastball at the top of the zone right by someone for strike three, right? When the very next at bat, there was a fastball at 94, same spot, gets hit out of the park for a homer, right? So the difference there, is it coincidence? Maybe, right? But I think the driver is if we can increase the fastball velocity and hold it constant at those upper 90s, again, just like Fitz, it's going to elevate the quality and the grades of all the other pitches, right? So also with Dobbins, we're just tightening things up. We're tightening things up. One of the drivers just getting ahead in counts more often. And when you do, put guys away. How fast can you race to 2 strikes? How quickly can you end the at-bat once you do get to 2 strikes? So simple philosophies. I'm sure you guys have talked about it with someone, but he has a splinker, which is essentially a splitter grip that he rips as hard as he can around 90 miles an hour that has a splitter action. And then just retooling his sweeper a little bit. So really he's got a lot of tangibles and a lot of qualities that are big league ready. It's how consistent can we be with all those, and can he keep that velocity at that higher level consistently?
When we talked to Chad during the offseason, I had mentioned to him that on paper, you guys have probably the deepest pitching staff that Paw Sox to Woo Sox have had in a very long time. And you have veterans who have big league experience, like a Michael Fulmer, who potentially could start, with you guys, to Cooper Criswell. You have the Fitz and you have the Dobbins of the world. I did want to ask you about, though, 2 players that are really not on Red Sox fans' radar, but are going to be part of the equation. One is Grant Gambrell and the other is Shane Drowan. When you guys get Drowan back, when I talked with him, he had mentioned he was trying to get more strength in the shoulder. He was trying to add on more weight. He looked physically bigger. His frame did look bigger, shoulders. Where do you see him right now? How does he look? And then with Gambrell, someone that shut down towards the end of last year, he was a little banged up. He's back in camp. Like, where do you see Gambrell fitting with the team? Is he more starter? Is he going to be in the bullpen? Because, start with Drowan.
Yeah, you nailed it, Chris. Like, Dro did a great job this offseason getting stronger, right? And really, just the work ethic, right? And he was in a tough spot at the end of the year last year. And I don't know if he felt like his back was against the wall maybe this year, but I mean, he put the work in. And you saw what I saw when he first arrived in Fort Myers, is that he's physically looks better, looks bigger, stronger. The shoulder strength is back to where he wants it. And as a result, he's throwing right now top in 95, sitting 94, where he struggled to even get close to that last year at certain times. So I know he's feeling good. I haven't seen him with my own eyes yet, but I've talked to a lot of the other minor league coaches who have had him, and he's opening some eyes on the minor league side right now. So not really sure I think it all depends on that trickle down effect, right? Like, where do some of these starters land? Do some of them end up in the big leagues, or some of them down with us? So not sure if he's going to be lengthened out just yet as a starter, or if we're going to have him kind of in a reliever role or a swingman role. But the one thing we Trace and I were talking about the other day is we don't have a ton of lefties potentially at the AAA level, at least looking through all the arms and everything like that. But he could be one that can really make an impact. And again, he's been there, right? He's been to big league camp, pitched in the big leagues just for a little bit there. So he knows what to expect. And again, I think he has a little chip on his shoulder. I don't think he liked last year and how he was handled with the other organization he was with. So it'll be pretty exciting. I'm pretty excited to see him personally, but I think everybody else should be too, because he's worked his tail off. And I mean, he looks like he's ready to go. So, the other guy, Gambrell, I've gotten close to Gambrell over the past couple of years. When I was in the rehab role, he started there. And unfortunately, the last 2 years, he's had to be shut down just because of some minor elbow forearm stuff. But he's also put himself in a pretty good position. Again, just like we talked about with all of these guys, the velocity has ticked up quite a bit. If you guys watched the big league outing, he got to back up in JetBlue. He was 95, 96 with his fastball. I know he's got another 2-inning stint in Clearwater today against the Phillies, so we'll see if that trend continues. But he knows how to pitch. He's got the ability to shape pitches and and do things what he wants with the baseball. A lot of this is just going to depend on where that trickle down effect and where guys fit. Again, Gambrell could easily be a starter. That's pretty much what he's done his whole life, but he's pretty interesting in the relief role as well. Because again, you take guys that have traditionally thrown in the low 90s with interesting stuff, you put them in a relief role, their velocity automatically jumps up and they become pretty interesting. So not exactly sure where either of those guys are going to stand here in a month or so. But they both put themselves in pretty good positions.
It was almost like when Penrod went down, the first thing that came to my mind was, because last year is the opposite. You guys had like a million lefties. It was like the complete.
Yeah.
It just seemed like if you were a right-hander, it was like an albatross in the locker room. But like from this perspective, though, when Penrod went down, I immediately thought Drouin could maybe fill that role. He could be that type of guy for you guys out of the bullpen, where can maybe go bulk innings, because that's what Chase typically does. These guys are going typically 2 innings because he wants them to be ready for the big leagues and any sort of But I felt like just my 2 cents, but like I thought he'd be good out of that role. But it just Gambrell was a little more interesting, because to me he gives me like Van Bell vibes, where Van Bell, when he came out of the rotation last year and went into the bullpen, he was lights out pretty much the last 2 months. He had sub 2 ERAs, and I mean, like it was like the complete opposite, guy. And it was almost like, can Gambrell kind of be that Van Bell this year out of the pen that can give you length, but also can flop back to the rotation if people are called up with some of the stuff you just talked about?
Yep. 100% agree. I mean, these are all possibilities, and take a guy like Drohan, if he's already throwing 90, 94 top of 95, what does he look like as a reliever out of the bullpen, left-handed with a few good, pretty top shelf pitches? They're potentials that you kind of dream on, right? And just wonder about the possibility of what could be. So I'm on the same page with you. I think there's a lot to still be played out this spring.
All right, I got 2 quick questions left, and we'll let you slide.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit here, so no pressure. But from last season in 2024, there was a lot of. I feel like you had probably a lot of feel-good moments, and obviously, you saw some guys make their MLB debuts that you got close with, or whatever it was, and a lot of people were having babies in Worcester. I mean, whatever it was, you had a lot of like cool moments. I know Penrod had a daughter last year, but I guess as far as for you, what was the one moment that you look back and you're like, that one was the coolest one that I experienced all last year?
Boozer's call up was pretty cool. Honestly, in the AAA clubhouse, that was the first one that I was a part of in Worcester, and he was on speakerphone, and Breslow was on there. I think Willard was on there, and we were in the room, and just like the amount of work that he put in throughout his career to get there, and I don't know, the whole thing was pretty cool. I'd say that was another one, and then I know that there's some ones that aren't really exciting, and there's not really like a moment that I don't know that triggers you necessarily with this one. But like you mentioned, Van Bell, if I'm honest, was like somewhat at the end of the rope, and there wasn't much left for him to give, right? And we presented him with an opportunity to change his arm slot and go after something that was a little bit uncharacteristic. And I don't know, to me, it was a cool moment watching him. And Chris, you mentioned it, the last 2 months. I mean, he was arguably our most valuable pitcher, right? Because he could do things in multiple roles. And it's like, those aren't the sexy moments that people see or recognize, but like as a coach, those are ones that, I don't know, that really hit home, that make you remember why you do it, because we took a guy that was really searching, and we added a lot of value there. So anyways, ones like that are cool, not sexy. No one reads about it in the paper or anything, but those are the ones as coaches that we do this for.
That Van Bell, though, the Van Bell, reference to me, though, that's the prime example of pitching development. Because I think when people think about pitching development, they think about, well, who can be your internal Garrett Crochet, where it's not always about who's the next ace. You're developing how many pitchers up and down the organization from the big level down. And you just mentioned it. You just tweaked an arm angle and he went out, he executed it kind of to your point, kind of at the end, but he sees that opportunity. To me, that's a big part of development. And that should be, those are some of the wins that I think fans should know about. And they so that way it can be, they get a different look to what actually development is from a pitching standpoint.
Yeah. If I mean, I'm being, kind of blunt here, but like my job is to create industry value with all these pitchers. From a business standpoint, that's what my job is, right? Like for me, there's a personal coaching relationship that obviously we really enjoy, but that's the business part of it. And you're right. Like with that in Van Bell, we were able to do that as well. For us, it's more satisfying to see what it did for the human, right? For the guy involved there. But you're absolutely right. That's our job in a nutshell. And I do have one more. I don't know how I forgot about this, but like Chase Shugart was a really special one. That was a really special one for us. I mean, he was on the chopping block. He was, based on the year he had before. I know he had a good spring last year, but like he was a guy that we have to make some releases in the middle of the year, and he was on the chopping block to get. And I'm glad we stuck our neck out for him. He kept working, and man, for him to to make it to the big leagues, and a lot of people in this organization were celebrating. So I don't know how I forgot that one, but that's up there.
Yeah, Shug, one of our favorite guys. I don't know if we're allowed to say that, but I mean, he's
everybody's man. Yeah,
always a treat. So nice to us. I mean, he'd give you the shirt off his back if you needed it. I mean,
that's it.
Guy, man.
Yep. Fantastic.
All right, final question for you. Non-baseball related question. I'm just curious about this, just myself. So I don't know if other people even will care about this one, but you're obviously a big Ohio State Buckeye through and through. Columbus, Ohio is in your blood. So I want to ask, obviously you guys just won a natty this season. So what did you get to do for the national championship game?
Oh, I mean, nothing crazy. My kids have obviously become fans. So we just watched at our house and we made a lot of food, and I let them stay up and watch the whole game and the press conference, and they probably got 5 hours of sleep before they had to get up for school the next day. So not proud of that as a dad, but it was cool. I think those are moments that are cool. It's not necessarily the game itself, but it's, memories of like doing it with your family. And then you get to talk about it when you're older and whatnot. So nothing special. They got, my mom flew down a month ago, brought them some T-shirts, national championship T-shirts. But nothing crazy, but we were pumped. We were happy. As a fellow coach, I was happy for, Ryan Day. It's tough putt after losing to your rival and getting all the craziness that he got. So I was more probably happy for him than anything.
Hey, by the way, Ryan Day, New Hampshire's own. So
that's right.
New England's got to celebrate him too.
That's right.
All right, I'll end it on this. Would you trade a loss to the University of Michigan every single year if that means you won the national championship?
No, if you win the national championship every year, like a lot of people, I think it's an easy one. Like you're the best team in the country. That's it. So, I don't know. For me, it's an easy one. I get it, but I don't know. I probably have some people that debate me on that one. That's okay.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, Dan, we appreciate all the time you gave us. Obviously, I know you're a busy guy. You're in the thick of things, getting the season ramped up here, but we definitely appreciate you hopping on, and thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Enjoyed it. Appreciate it.